Let's call the meeting to order. Because we are Zoom, I'm going to ask Dee to call the roll and mark attendance.
Okay, I'm going to call the roll and mark attendance, but after I start passing around candy, because I think we all need some tonight.
I
Okay.
can't hear her.
You got to speak into the microphone.
I have to speak into the mic. Okay. Speaking into the microphone, I think they'll hear me. First one, Suresh. No Suresh. Okay. Peggy Briggs. Present. Kathy Kukolo.
Here.
Thank you. You're remote? Yeah. Okay. John
Yes,
Garofalo
ma'am.
is a no, I think.
He's a no.
Okay. Greg Yellow? Not yet. Okay. Amrit Kumar.
I'm here and remote.
Thank you. John Kupka. Here. Lindsay List.
Present, remote.
Thank you. Gordner here. Parshar Patel.
Here.
Carlin Reed.
Present.
Christine Reynolds.
Here.
Rosie Sud Rosamond. No. Lois Wassoff.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Call the meeting to order. I'm going to throw up our agenda here. The first order of business is public comment. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a comment? You can come up here next to Anthony, name, rank, and serial number. We'll go from there.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Okay. Hi, Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road, speaking as a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee. In December, the Transportation Advisory Committee sent a letter to the Select Board copying Town Manager and FinCom, which communicated the TAC's unanimous support for transportation-related FY 2025 and beyond capital investment proposals developed by Public Works. Today, I resent it to the FinCom for your consideration and inclusion in the record of this meeting. One very important request from Public Works is $4.1 million for road pavement management. It is a fact that Concord has failed for multiple years to budget adequately for road maintenance. Concord's PCI, or Pavement Condition Index, is 66 compared to 90 for the neighboring town of Lexington and 84 for roads in Bedford. Maintaining our roads in good condition actually saves the town money by expending the useful life of past investments in roadways. It will reduce the frequency of expensive and disruptive major road reconstruction projects. This affects everyone who lives or travels in Concord. We all depend upon our town-maintained roads for everyday, ordinary services they provide, as well as for use by emergency services of all types. Another important item in the FY 2025 request is $1.3 million for traffic improvements. The road layout of Concord forces most traffic through town centers, especially during peak travel times. Congestion is approaching pre-pandemic levels, and we can expect more visitors to come to Concord in 2025 and 26. A number of intersections in Concord stand in need of safety and efficiency improvements. The TAC urges the Finance Committee to support Public Works' request for $1.3 million for traffic improvements. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. And we have somebody on Zoom, Janet Miller, name, rank, and serial number.
Janet Miller, 1647 Main Street. I am concerned about how much it will cost the town to keep replacing artificial turf with more of the same. It's my understanding that the Doug White fields are reaching the end of their useful life and that plans will be drawn up for their replacement soon. I would like to ask that during this process there will be plans drawn up that include conversion back to grass. There is evidence that making the change to grass will be less costly over time than plastic turf, while also being safer, healthier, and less damaging environmentally. A well-designed grass field with good drainage withstands a lot of player time, and there has been good experience in other towns with this option. The Boston Globe reported that the city of Newton approved a $3.5 million budget last year for the artificial turf replacement project on Newton South High School fields. I assume the town of Concord would have to pay a similar amount of money for the Doug White fields. I fear that these costs are only going to increase in the future. as of now, there are no landfills that will accept used artificial turf in Massachusetts, and it's piling up in places like Pennsylvania. It's questionable whether there will be anywhere willing to accept it in coming years, or if they do, at what cost. There is no way to recycle it.
Thank you. Just a quick clarification question. Are you talking about replacing turf at the schools or Dugway? Where exactly? What's the locations you're concerned about?
The Dugway fields are at the high school. They are not, they're owned by the town in that they have a lease for, it was a 30-year lease when they put the fields in.
I see. And have you made your concerns known to the school committee, regional school committee?
Not yet.
Okay, I would encourage you to go there as well. Thank you. Another comment? One more here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Phil Posner. I live at 223 Losbrook Road. I'm also a member of the Transportation Committee. I want to
Look
reiterate
at 2 votes.
two cracks at the apple. I'll also say I want to just reiterate what Mr. Galis had to say. I also want to focus on a different issue. I have some documents to pass around for reference. These documents are a summary of the Envision Concord 2030 plan, which was the town's master plan, as they relate to mobility and transportation. Amongst the highlights of what the community said in connection with the preparation of that plan was that transportation and mobility was the number 3 priority contributing to the quality of life in the town, and that about half of the respondents believed that some improvements were necessary to Concord's mobility and transportation system, and about a quarter of the respondents said that major improvements were necessary. And you can see from this document that the most pressing mobility and transportation problems were traffic in the village center, bicyclist safety, and lack of sidewalks outside of the centers of town. I can tell you that, as detailed in the DPW report, things are getting worse on the road. Things are not getting any better on the sidewalks, and there are a number of public safety issues that need to be addressed. So we're asking for the Finance Committee's support of the Public Works budget, in particular focusing in on the bike and ped improvements, which are specified at about $691,000 in that budget. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Let's quickly go to agenda item number 3, follow up on, what was it on? To-do items, follow-up items. So the good news, we're going to use the version of our tracker that I sent out, I think, yesterday. I'll throw it up here in a second. The good news is there's a lot of green. We've caught up over the holidays, and that's no thanks to efforts on the part of Dee and town staff. If you've gone to our website, it is updated. Documents get put up there. If you've signed up, people will get notified. You can go in up and change documents, et cetera. So thank you very much, Dee. Appreciate that effort. Just a couple things to discuss. And Anthony, this one's for you, item number 35. Apparently the schools said that they returned money from fiscal year 2023 back to the town in October, that they would have a number for us, or you would have a number. So if we can find out how much money was returned back from the schools, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
So-
I don't have an answer for you on that tonight,
Okay,
but certainly we can get it. Town accountant's still closing out the year, so the school department still has open encumbrances, which they need to resolve before we truly get an idea of what.
can we get an estimate of where things stand now, though?
We got an estimate back in November, December, that the estimated free cash was.
Not free cash.
Schools, no, I can't give it right now.
Okay, so we'd like an estimate, even if it's not final, of where it stands today,
Sure.
okay? And then, Dee, this is a matter, I think, of updating, I think some of the budget tables were not updated yet on the Finance Committee website. Maybe we could just check on that.
I will check on
Okay.
it. Yep.
Could be wrong, but I didn't see it up there.
They should be under, if budget ones might be under the guidelines?
Okay, well, we'll just double check, right?
What number was that?
39.
Okay.
And then item 40 is also for you, Steve, and this is going to be important for the town. Oh, I'm sorry, what did I say? Steve, sorry. I'm looking over here at Steve. I should probably change that. For the town warrant, for our finance committee report, we usually have a chart showing what the status of debt borrowing is for the next 5-10 years. Last year, we hadn't included the cost for the borrowing for the middle school. This year, we'd like to make sure both the money already borrowed, as well as what we project to borrow probably next year, will be included in that chart. So that's talking about item 40. And Lois and I talked about this as well, right, when we write the report, that ought to be updated. And then the last item, which we'll get to in a minute, is we're going to go through the warrant articles for town meeting and confirm which ones we're going to actually make recommendations on, versus which ones we're going to not make recommendations on. Let me pause here, look around the room.
There's just one,
Questions?
I mentioned it
Right in
to,
here.
mentioned it to Dee. There's one that's in the red that we actually completed. It was the letter regarding revenue to the select board. We sent that out in September. So
What
that's.
number is that?
it's one-
25.
It's one of the, yeah, it says parish warrant, Chris.
Okay.
That was done. So you
Yep,
can check
thank
that
you.
one off.
Great, perfect. We'll make that correction. Okay, good. Any other comments? Good. This is very encouraging, by the way, so thank you to everybody on the committee and everybody that's helped out on this. Accomplished quite a lot. Making the list to start with.
Right.
All right, let's go around the room. Finance Committee liaison updates. Eric, you're the first one up here.
Public Works Commission. So they had a meeting early this. They had a monthly meeting early this month. I haven't yet. I wasn't able to attend. I haven't yet been able to watch it on YouTube. But the big topic from the Public Works Commission is the stormwater utility, the Warren article. Their committee's leadership reached out to us, expressing interest in engaging with us on a discussion of the article. I think they were initially interested in coming to a meeting, but we reached consensus that it may be a better use of time for them to send over some information. So they're preparing a written summary, a one-pager, and they're going to send us the relevant video snippet from their recent forum on the article, and give us an opportunity to review it and then follow up with questions. And I suppose at that point we could decide if we want to have them in or not.
Do you know
So-
what article number it is?
I don't, but I can pull. We have that
have
for
the
tonight.
list
I can pull it
someplace,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's in the
it's a
pack, it's in the
stormwater
packet.
Stormwater utility?
Stormwater
utility,
utility.
16?
Create stormwater enterprise fund.
Yeah. Did they have an amount?
It's just to create, it was just to create
It's not funded
the, the fund. So
Okay.
there's no dollar amount and nothing yet.
No money involved.
Not yet.
Okay.
That would be next town meeting,
All right.
a year from now.
So Eric, is that it?
That's it.
Cool, thank you very much. I'm looking at this list. Dee, you're up for schools?
Yeah, I don't have any follow-up.
No follow-up. Peggy, any follow-up from CPC? No, I'm sorry, I don't. Okay. And then Carlin Rex Commission?
Just very briefly, they had met on December 19, talked about the strategic plan for recreation, and then subsequent to that, the consultants sent out a draft of the plan to members of the commission, to me, to Mark Howell, who's the liaison, and we submitted comments about what we thought of it. And my three things that I commented are the same that I reported to this committee before. One, the simple darken the font because you can't read the dang thing in some places. Two, be careful about what you say around Doug White Fields because it's a political hot potato, as we've already heard tonight. And consider some language about the environmental aspects because that is noticeably blank in their report. And three, there's a big section about using the skate park at the high school for recreation, but the high school already has plans for that. The regional district has some plans, and perhaps the recreation department should coordinate with the schools before making plans on what to use with the school property.
The state park, did you say?
Skate, S-K-A-T.
Okay.
Yeah, switch the letters around a little bit, sorry about that. Their next meeting is, I think is January 29 at 6:30, a half hour before we'd have the town caucus, but that's the next meeting for recreation. That's it.
No money estimates yet, Carlin?
No, what they do in the draft plan, and it's 506 pages long, is they put dollar signs in a chart. $1 sign, $2 sign, $3 signs, to give a gradation of.
Yeah.
And Doug White has a $3 sign after
What
it in the
tiers?
skate part. Pardon me?
Tier 1, Tier 2?
No, they don't use dollar amounts. It's just like, this is an immediate minor cost. This is a short-term major cost, and they have it scaled up like that with a number of recommendations. It will be put out for public comment eventually. I'm not convinced that any public comment will actually change what's in that report. I think it'll just be saying, yeah, we asked for public comment towards the end, so I'm not real optimistic about that.
But at some point, they're going to put a dollar sign to it, right?
I don't think they're going to be putting, I don't think the consultant is going to be putting an actual dollar amount, but they'll say this is a low priority, or the high priority, this is a cheap one, or this is an expensive one,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
All right, thank you, Carlin. Don, Minuteman.
Yeah, nothing of substance yet. I would say that while the superintendent position is still unsettled, it'll be, we won't see much substance other than the budget, but beyond that, there is talk about whether or not to expand to other towns, expand enrollment.
Interesting. Do they have space?
Membership.
Do they have space to take on more students?
I
Or does
think
that mean going
that's
to
the-
be
that's
fewer
the
students
thing
for
being
us?
studied.
Yeah, okay.
And then there is some potential renovation of some facility that would allow that.
I see.
We'll see, but there's nothing of substance.
Okay. Let's see, I think that's it. Let's go around. Lindsay, I see you there. Any updates from the planning board?
No, I haven't watched the meeting yet. I wasn't able to attend earlier this week, so I'll have to
Okay.
watch that and report next time.
Kathy, housing? I thought Kathy was on. Is she not on?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. My microphone was off. Apologies.
That's okay.
Continues to move ahead on Junction Village and Assabet River Bluff RFPs. Nothing for the Finance Committee to note there, other than the activities are continuing. I did have a note that there's going to be a site visit at Junction Village next week. So as soon as I get something specific, I'll pass it on to the members of the committee who might be interested. I haven't caught up on the MBTA community zoning, but I have followed with interest a number of towns. Brookline, Newton have passed theirs, and yet it seems like the town of Newton may rebel. So I don't know if anybody follows some of these towns in the globe, but we haven't moved forward yet with a decision here in Concord.
Okay, thank you. I don't, is Suresh on?
No.
Were you
I can
able
do
to?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was another monthly meeting was today on the middle school building. The project continues to run well. They've spent about $29 million to date, and not very much of contingency has been spent, which is good, so things seem to be going well. They do anticipate some what they call change orders related to the weather. So certain materials don't set at the right rate depending on the temperature, and so depending on when they had planned the timing to do certain aspects of the work, the contractor has said he may have to come back with a change order on those, but that's still under discussion. So at the moment, very well, things are going very well.
Good. Did you have a question, Don?
No, I was just going to mention that a change order can be just an extension of time without it being money.
It can be, right.
Okay, good.
I don't think that's going to be the case with this one.
All right, I will just give a quick readout from the chair's breakfast, which was yesterday. Hearing schedule has been set. Anthony, I don't know whether we've got it in our packet or not, but we'll circulate it and we'll confirm the dates because we need to attend most of them. So that's number one. They're encouraging members of the public and others to participate at the hearings. We'll do our part. Hopefully, everybody, we all know we should encourage them to show up at our hearings, all the hearings, frankly. That's number one. 53 articles, as you saw. This is Carmen now reporting. Definitely 3 nights, maybe 4 nights, just FYI. And then the MBTA zoning article, which we just talked about, is going to be on Tuesday, first thing Tuesday, because of the tremendous public interest that's there. So just be ready for that. Housing, one should continue progress. Let's see, anything related to Public Works? Speaking of Public Works, streets are clear. And so to the extent that we can send little emails of appreciation to Public Works, I would encourage everybody to do that, actually. There was one period where they were literally on the road, I think, for 30 hours plus, right, just rotating. So if you can do that, take 2 minutes and do that, that would be very good. The Economic Vitality Committee has asked the 2229 committee to get together to discuss potential business opportunities at that site, which is encouraging, frankly. So I thought that was pretty good. And I think that was pretty much it. We're going to hear back from the schools. I think folks have heard the CCRSD managed to lower their budget by $100K and stuff. But we'll hear more from the schools at our February meeting. So that was it. All right.
Question, do you know, can you tell us the dates right now for the hearings? Everybody has them, or we have them already? Okay.
Is it in the packet?
No.
So then can you just read them off?
Just read them off so we have them.
This is what they handed out at the chair's breakfast. Public hearings, February 26 is Select Board. March 7 is Finance Committee 1. March 12 is Planning Board. March 19 is Finance Committee 2. And March 21 is Finance Committee 3, and I think that's the enterprise hearing.
What date did you give for that last one?
21st.
First.
What was it after the Finance Committee one? Planning Board, which was what, March 12.
Month of March went on when you agreed to sign up.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have those in my calendar, actually.
Okay. So let me stop the share. Don't just ignore that, please, because I want to make sure that was a calendar set back in September, October.
Yep.
I will double check it and make sure, and if necessary,
Okay.
resend it. Okay?
Good.
All right, Anthony, you are up, I believe, or the town is up. You've got material to share, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So number 5, there is
Let's use a microphone so everyone can hear.
So number 5 is the annual town meeting. There is the 3 warrant articles that I submitted on behalf of the Finance Committee that happen every year. First one being the meeting procedures. Second article being the use of free cash, which is the $1 million from free cash to offset the levy. And the third article was adding additional funds to the middle school stabilization, which was the interest on the borrowing. So that was $477,633.33, which will go into the middle school stabilization fund.
What will that bring the balance to? Where were we, 3.5?
It should be 3.5, just shy of
Yeah.
3.5, around there.
Okay. Did we use any this year?
No. So
No?
there was one more warrant article that we had discussed internally, which would be starting to use that stabilization,
Yeah.
and that'll start next year.
So in '26?
26.
Okay.
So just for background, these articles, the first two are kind of routine and submitted every year. Basically, the last one we submitted the last couple of times, as Anthony and Chris noted, I think they were doing it at $1 million or $1.5 million.
It depended how much we had. Yeah, we built it up over 3 years, I think.
Exactly. So, and this year, that money reflects the amount of interest earned on the
Correct.
bonds borrowed to date. So it kind of made sense not to take any more money from taxpayers at this point to fund the stabilization fund. Okay, let me pull up my spreadsheet, Anthony, so
Yep,
I can
I'll
take
stop
notes
sharing.
on it. If you can stop sharing, I'll
Sure.
pull up the spreadsheet here. And I'll make it larger for many of us that need that.
Naming no names.
Sorry?
Naming no
I'll
names.
raise my hand. But I also gave copies to everybody. But in any case, can everybody read this? You guys at home are okay reading it? Or should I make it larger?
It's
Okay.
fine.
Good. So I'm only going to hit the ones in green very quickly because there's 53 of them. We're not going to go through all of these. What I've done is taken a look at what we've done in the past, what's required, and those are the ones in green. If anybody thinks I've missed any or ones that are in green but shouldn't be there, we should speak up. I'm just going to go through these. Did you have a question, Carlin, or I'm going to go through these? Sorry?
It's one of the ones that
Well, let's just
isn't
hold, let me
green.
just get to them.
Fine.
one at a time, please. Okay, so the first one that we would hit up is meeting procedures. This is just a perfunctory article. For some reason, it's assigned to the Finance Committee.
Yes.
But it is what we do, apparently. The next set from 7 through 14, very clearly budget items, appropriation matters. The first couple, the improvement capital plan, OPEB has traditionally been ones that we make recommendations on. Number 13 is a relatively new one, and this is basically to appropriate money for public safety at the request of the Concord 2025 Executive Committee. We will have a public hearing on this, and we can opine at that time whether we agree to support or not support. Article 14 is one we've traditionally gone over, free cash. And then Article 17, Nagog Pond improvements and mitigation. I think that's going to be appropriation, so that's something we would make recommendations on. And then Articles 19 through 21, no surprise, basically school budgets and capital article. 23 through 25, again, no surprises there, school budgets. Update 31, I put a green for now because, one of the things that we've talked about consistently through the year is we've got all sorts of active citizens, committees, et cetera, asking for 200,000 here, 400,000 there, and we don't have a sense of sort of tying it together. So I think we should at least look at what they're proposing to see whether it has any fiscal impact, either next year or in the future, and then make a recommendation accordingly. So I put that as something for us to review as well. Skipping down, CPC.
What about 33, Parashar? Was that like 32, 31?
So in solar, in town, actually, that's a good question.
I think it is.
Let's do that green one. I know the one at the high school is going to be funded by CMLP, but maybe we should actually look at this one too.
I think so. yeah.
Okay. Oh, we'll figure out the color later. So we'll add that one to the schedule. Let's see. CPC is traditional. And then we have 43, and then 44. We may or may not have those articles. They sometimes have been submitted, not submitted. Then apparently, the moderator has informed me that we actually do have to make recommendations on the enterprise funds.
Okay.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the way through 50, 51, of course, may or may not have implications for town appropriations. 52 and 53 may or may not be submitted this year as well. So that's basically what we're looking at.
So 45 through 53 are yes, is that right?
Yes, yeah, these are all green.
So on the enterprise funds, I'm just thinking about the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, Article 16, is it because that's just creating the framework and not actually, there's no actual, like, funds involved? Okay.
Don?
I believe we, after our last year's town meeting, we talked conceptually about providing the voters with a tally board, a live tally board, to keep track of the tax impact of the votes. Is that something we want to put on the agenda next meeting?
I love that idea. Did we talk to the moderator about it?
I've not talked to Carmen about that.
It's like
Let me
thermometer.
do you want to reach out to Carmen? Okay, why don't you reach out to Carmen? We'll add that to the to-do list, Dee. That Don will reach out to Carmen about a big tally board. Thermometer turns red at a certain level. Peggy, do you have a question? Let's get into the mic. Dee, can you give her the microphone?
Article 43. I have not seen that. I tried to find the entire warrant online tonight, but I didn't. I just found this
I couldn't find
spreadsheet.
it either.
So I have no idea what that is. Do you?
I do not. Anthony, I'm looking at you. It says town manager. I don't have any of the articles.
We're still working on that, so some of those are still Xed out, and we should have a draft, Karen, about a week?
What's the general idea? I mean,
This is amending the departmental revolving fund.
Okay, so
43.
the warrant is not published. That's why it's not available. It's it's not going to the printer until the end of next week. 43 is the annual appropriation of the departmental revolving funds. We have a tree bylaw fund. We have a COA fund. We have a handful
routine,
of funds.
right?
You do those every year, yes.
One of those, was that the housing?
Into the microphone.
The Regional Housing Services Office, correct.
Right.
Okay.
A couple meetings ago, you had a vote to increase that.
Microphone.
okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions, Carlin?
That's fine.
I want to go back to talking about Article number 16, the Stormwater Fund. I'm glad we're adding 33, because I think that's important, but number 16, the Stormwater Fund, they're not going to be talking about the actual dollar amount that's going to be assessed to each homeowner or each commercial property, but they're going to be talking a framework. And I would recommend that we actually ask them to come talk to us or give us information that gives us some idea of how much money they have been spending on stormwater, how much money they expect it to cost going forward. I think it's between $1 and $2 million, but I'm not sure. Something like that, because just to leave it, I think is a mistake.
I appreciate that. I guess what I'm trying to do is be efficient in our time. We have 2 meetings basically to do this, and you see the list. And so if you've got a question as to how much money they spend on stormwater, et cetera, what I would recommend is send your list of questions to them. You can copy Anthony, and then when we get answers, you can circulate it to the committee. But we don't have a lot of time in March, okay? Any other questions, folks on the Zoom? I'm looking at Kathy and Lindsay. Nope. Okay.
So are we going to talk about how we're going to, like what ones we need more info on and how we're going to get
We're
that?
going to need info on all of them,
Yeah,
right?
but some of them we may know something about, like CPC, we haven't really seen anything on yet.
No, so our next meeting is in February.
Okay.
At that point, hopefully we'll have enough data to figure out when we're going to get info on what dates.
Okay.
Hopefully by then we have it.
Yeah.
And we can go through and start
We'll have
actually.
the warrant,
Right.
which will have that
Oh,
list.
but it won't have necessarily information, right? And so that's when we've got a February meeting and we have a March meeting coming up, right? And
Yeah.
hearings.
Yeah.
So the goal is in between February and the March hearings, and we have a meeting after that too in March.
Yeah.
We will get that information to make recommendations.
Okay, so I would just, just kind of go through the list and say what ones are hot or what ones are ones we don't know much about, and put those in the front, so in case we need, more
The CPC is
discussion.
probably the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
The rest of the major dollar amounts?
Well, the solar stuff, I don't know what they're asking for. CPC,
enough.
I haven't seen.
In my mind, that one in the 2025, I think, is wavering between 750 and a little bit less. But,
Yeah, right, and that at least we had a presentation on.
And the NAGOG mitigation one's the other one, by the way.
A lot of money.
Is that a lot of money? Is NAGOG a lot of
That
money?
might be a lot of money.
Is it? Okay, okay,
We should know about 17.
Right.
We should know about 16.
It's those that are the big ones.
okay.
CPC, NAGOG, maybe the solar one.
Do you want to have people here?
Well, let me take.
Or,
let's-
yeah, we could do
let's
hearings or
figure it
whatever you
out,
want to
right?
do, yeah.
Exactly. We've,
The February meeting, there was some talk about having a capital plan meeting jointly with the Select Board, School Committee, and FinCom, and I thought the school committee wanted to postpone that till June or July. Have you made a decision yet about?
So
Capital
let's be very clear. So for those of you who don't know, and I think the select board has invited the school committees to come in and talk about their capital plans on February 12th at the select board meeting. So it's not a joint committee meeting, joint nothing. It's them asking. They've invited me and a member of the FinCom if we want to show up. I'll show up because obviously it's got implications for the budget. And I believe, and I don't know for sure, because it also involves a middle school, I believe the Carlisle folks will be there. But that's it.
What is the date of this meeting?
February 12th, at their regular select board meeting, basically. We have a meeting on the 15th, at which we're going to ask the schools to come in because they will be voting, I think on January 23rd or the 30th, I forget the exact date, on their budget at CPS. I'm expecting CCRSD to be nailed down by then also. At that point, they can come in and say, this is our final budget, and that'll be at our regularly scheduled meeting on the 15th, basically. Okay? And then we'll add other items on the 15th as we get more information.
Parshar, you should, if anyone on this committee plans to attend the meeting on the 12th, I think you should ask that they let you know so that we don't have a quorum problem.
Thank you. Let me know.
I won't be there.
Otherwise, I'll leave.
I know you will.
Well, what about people who Zoom in?
Look, I'm not going to get into the process right now. I mean, at the end of the day,
You just should know.
Yeah,
that if you have-
exactly. So
If
we'll-
everybody shows up, you need to check with the town clerk.
well,
I've run into that problem before.
okay.
Hey, Parashar, do you want to just post a meeting for FinCom and
No,
call
no,
the meeting
no.
to order if we're there?
No, this is a select board meeting, period. We're not going to post it for FinCom. I'm sorry. The select board has made it very clear it's their meeting. Right. Okay. Any other questions on the articles? Otherwise, we're going to turn it back over to Anthony to give us an update on the town capital and operating plan budget.
I do have a question
yeah.
about the articles. Our role is to advise, so we want to begin this process with a framework where we look at a lot of these articles are for borrowing, right? $9 million for this or that. And do we want to begin with a framework so that we aren't debating the merits of a project per se, but it's more about the fiscal impact? Because I think sometimes we lack a clear or agreed definition of what it is we're here for in this regard. And we don't want to be just posing our opinion about whether or not something is a worthy project, but rather about the tax impact overall. And so I think having that conceptual discussion of what we're doing here and would be worth doing before we launch into it.
So, I mean, I'm open to having the conversation. I'm looking around. So
Other than the school budgets, right, and the town budget,
Yep.
the others are capital items, correct?
Well, the vast majority of them
The
are the,
4 million for the roads.
so though the 4 million we'll talk about in a
within the-
minute.
within the
That's
capital
within the
plan for
capital
the
budget
town.
itself.
Right.
Right.
The 250, is that
So
free
the
cash?
250,
Within-
That's free cash.
yeah, so I hear what you're saying, I guess, as I'm looking, so here's what might be helpful, I think, to help out, maybe, is this spreadsheet we did. What if we add another column? We won't do it right now, but what if we add another column that provides some sense of whether whatever amount of money that is being discussed was included in our guideline discussion or not?
There you go, yeah. that'd be
Right?
great.
Would that help? And then we have the rest of the articles, and then I think it is worth looking at the rest to try to determine, hey, how do we want to think about these?
Thank you.
Does that help?
Perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you, that's good. Anthony, why don't you take it away? I'm going to stop sharing and you can.
All right, so just an update on where we stand with the capital budget. So, is the capital? Yeah. All right, sorry, so your guidelines called for spending on Tier 1 at $2.18 million. I'm happy to say that we have met that guideline, and the proposed projects, as you can see up on the screen, are ones that we discussed. Obviously, there was we just discussed how there is a lot more need or requests or asks that we just weren't able to fund. So this is the final list that we did go through with the town manager, and we'll take another look, but we're pretty confident that this is the final Tier 1 list of projects.
So Anthony, before you go to
Sure.
tier 1, or before you move off of that, it would be helpful if we can have a prioritized order for these projects, right? Because right now they're ordered by department, but suppose this amount was cut in half to $1 million, for example. Which ones would make that cut and which ones wouldn't? So I'm not asking for it to be cut, but is it possible to get these in priority order?
I think a lot more discussions would have to happen internally to come up with a list like that. So
Because I would think some of these just might go down, right? Like you'd spend less on computers or less on security improvements.
yeah. So I don't think we can make that determination. And if it's cut on the floor of town meeting, I think that we give us a dollar amount and then we'll have to cut a project. I don't know what to say. To ask what's more important, I think they're all important. I think the stuff that was requested that we didn't fund is equally important.
Yep. Okay. Carlin, you had a
Question, my understanding is 2.18 is within our guidelines for the Tier 1 capital plan, so he's met that guideline with those items. I've noticed a number of things that were cut from his earlier assessment of November 14th, like under information technology, he whacked out $200,000 of servers and other items, either been delayed or perhaps being funded through ARPA, so they've already gone through a bunch of stuff. They've met the guideline of 2.18 for the Tier 1. Prioritization, are we thinking about cutting it further than that?
I'm not, I didn't say cut. All I'm trying to understand is which ones are the priorities and have some sense of prioritization. One of the things I've noticed about capital plans coming both from the towns and the schools is items are put up there and we have very little or no sense of prioritization. So I'd like us to start thinking a little bit about, okay, if I had to prioritize these, which ones would it be? That's all that was.
Yeah,
Right? Got nothing to do with whether guidelines are met or not.
I think that's the process we go through in developing the final list that we're presenting at town meeting. So I would say all of them are important, and it's all of them a priority.
And so do you have a list of things that didn't make the cut?
Oh, we have.
Okay, okay, so can you send a separate attachment that just says these are the things that didn't make the cut?
It's a long list.
They're in prior packets.
Sorry?
They're in prior packets.
Okay,
Yeah, it's in a prior package,
just
so
do me a favor and just,
in about 3 weeks, I can get to that.
that's fine. That 2 to 3 weeks
Yeah,
is
it's not
perfectly
even
fine.
close
I'm
to-
not looking
right,
for
okay.
it today.
Can't
I'm
get
not
done
looking
now.
for it tomorrow.
All right.
Just a separate list of things that did not make the cut, okay?
Anthony, maybe you could just spend a minute and how you got, is there a sort of a view that you could explain how you got from the big number to this number? Were there, did you have a way to cut through it?
Yeah, so we sit down with each department, and we really try to get from them, what's your most important project putting forward? Because there's obviously ones that are less important or less in need.
Yep.
So we try to do it collaborative and really work with, amongst ourselves to determine, okay, let's all agree on this. So we did that. Obviously, we met with the town manager. The town manager has reviewed it, and she's looked it over too. And these are the projects that I think collectively we feel is the best use of the town's money.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to add anything.
Dee?
The question I have is, if a project that is on this list here can't happen in the year because of, they don't have the right equipment, or they don't have the right parts, or whatever it is, would you then just reduce the total amount, or would you make a substitution from a project that didn't make the list and put it on the list now?
So if town meeting approves this, then these projects can be carried forward into future years, capital
Okay.
projects. So if they don't get to it this year, and we hope that they do, because that's part of the process that we go through, is that we really expect that this list to be completed this year.
Okay, so if it doesn't get completed this year, that the dollar amount goes to the next year?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. That capital project was approved until it's completed. At some point in
Okay.
time, we'll go through the process of looking at all the old capital projects and rescinding some of those votes, and even on some of the borrowing and rescinding some borrowings too. So that's a process that we'll go through after
Okay.
the fiscal year.
Thank you.
Eric?
On the prioritization question, it sounds like you do have a sense of prioritization within each department.
Correct. And that's,
And is that how they're ranked here?
no, not necessarily. No, that's
Okay.
not how they rank.
Okay.
Any questions on Zoom before we go to the next slide? Oh,
Also regarding Tier 1, my understanding is that the town had a Tier 1 capital for the Doug White Fields of $100,000, and some recreation expenses. Two questions on that. One, my understanding is that the $100,000 study has been cut at this point, or at least not being funded. And second question is, will the recreation fund, yeah, I'm not done yet. You won't. Will the recreation fund, I'm almost done. Will the recreation fund, thank you, Doug, done, be used to help fund some of the recreation items that were cut, like repairing the ride-out tennis courts, repairing the Willard thing? How are you going to use the recreation fund? Because that has $1.8 million in it right now.
So we did allocate.
oh, okay, microphone.
I got it.
Just so they,
So we did allocate, so let's start with Doug Whitefield. So there was $100,000 that we still have as a potential ARPA project. And the reason why we wanted to start looking at that is because right now, it's a liability for the town. That the field is in pretty bad shape. The CPW has told me that they're constantly going and sewing rips and repairs, and it's getting to a point where we have to determine what the cost would be to replace it with turf, and then that's all this study would do, is determine what the cost would do. And then at that point, it would be a project that would come back and potentially fund it out of rec. I don't know, that would be next year's process that we'd go through.
okay, good.
And the rec fund.
Oh, and the rec fund, there is in Tier 2 projects, we did put some, it's on the next slide.
Tier 2?
Yeah, let's go to the
I
next slide.
think the short answer is we're still working with the rec department and the rec commission to identify a process by which we're allocating capital expenditures for the different recreational facilities. We haven't done that yet, but we do recognize that rec is a big user of those facilities, that they charge fees for programs that they offer. at tennis courts and basketball courts, and that they should be participating, even according to the rec bylaw, they should be participating in those capital expenses. But somehow, at some point, we got off track, and we need to get back off track. But we don't have a fully baked plan for that yet, but we're still working on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the Tier 2 debt, we met our goal at $4.1 million in spending, and these are the 6 projects that move forward for borrowing articles. So while we recognize some of the comments earlier today about roads, one thing that was discussed is that for Tier 3, Kerry did talk about possibly putting together a Tier 3 big infrastructure project. We feel that we weren't ready right now to go to town meeting. More work had to be done in that area, so we would anticipate perhaps coming back next town meeting, or if we did a special, maybe a special town meeting. But right now, it's just wasn't ready.
You want to just put, I think people are still looking
Oh.
at it.
Yeah.
So I'll have the same question here. Again, don't need it tomorrow, 2 to 3 weeks. Things that didn't make the cut for Tier 2 would be helpful. And then, again, if you're telling me that these are all key and that we can't prioritize, that's fine. But to the extent that we can prioritize, for the same reason as I said earlier, would be very helpful for folks, okay?
Parshar, the big deal is the $2 million that was cut from the public roads program. How did you make that decision? That's what's going to cause the most grief than anything else.
I think we just just followed what the town has done in previous years, is that we've only been able to allocate $2 million plus the additional Chapter 90 money. I will say that we had an additional $120,000 that we did identify for Tier 2, and we put it to roads. So anything that we had additional, we did that. There's no more room.
Can you just speak to what's in the traffic improvements, and then that last one, which looks like it's a truck or something? Can you speak to those last 2 large ones in Tier 2 for Public Works?
So what I know of it, yeah. So the truck is one of those large dump trucks that have plows on it. They're just really expensive.
Yeah,
So
okay.
they
So it's
actually
one
wanted
item,
2,
yeah.
and we had to cut 1 because we just couldn't fit it in.
Okay.
And then the 500,000 traffic improvements, I'm not totally.
Yeah, so we have a number of intersections that we are evaluating for improvement. And, if you remember the big list, there were lots of different items in addition to the paving.
Right.
We felt that we were most ready to move forward with the traffic improvement, the intersection work. I think what Anthony said, we had a $4.1 million target. Most of that money is going to Public Works. If we could have dedicated all of it to Public Works, we would have, but those 2 items in dispatch, those are needed. And you may recall, we had been working on a regional dispatch opportunity with Acton that just was not great for Concord. We backed out of that, but we do have a need to replace that equipment. The transportation study that we are doing right now that TAC is involved in, that certainly played into how we weighted things. We did feel that it might make more sense to hold off and have a big ask after we have that study. We have more data, and we can talk about all of the infrastructure, Public Works infrastructure needs, the road maintenance plus the improvements at the same time, so that we're not piecemealing this. But almost everything that we have is going to Public Works.
I just have one question on the projects that didn't make the list. If you sum up the amounts for each of those projects, can you give us a ballpark number of how much is still outstanding for those kinds of projects?
So from my recollection, there was about $14 million worth of asks in total for FY '25, and we funded 6.
Okay. So, and if I look at that, I have like 8 floating out there, that 8 million not funded. So is that just the bottom part of the next year? I mean, do you anticipate in the next year that there would be additional projects? So that it's not just 8 million that you're behind, but you're going to be behind another 10 million as well as the 8, or?
Yeah, absolutely. If you
Okay.
remember that chart that I originally put together, when we put the capital plan, there was the 5-year.
Yeah.
And every year it was 14 million. It
Yeah.
actually went down in year 4 and year 5. So anything that we're kicking out, we're kicking to next year, which is going to affect their next year's ask, and it'll just get pushed out, and pushed out.
So I guess my comment would be, at town meeting, do you talk about these? Do you get up, is it a separate article that's going to be coming up that you would talk about this issue? Because it's a big issue, and it's not just one that goes away in 1 or 2 years.
So it's, the public hearing process is when we get slightly more time to make a presentation. When this comes to town meeting, we get maybe 5 minutes. And it takes 5 minutes to go through what the projects are that are being proposed, and we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about what's not being proposed, but that would come up more in the public hearing process.
Okay, or could there also be a handout at town meeting that describes?
There could be.
Okay.
This could well be on the consent calendar,
Yeah.
which gives you
I
no
would
chance.
hope not.
Hasn't-
I'll get 5 people to get it off the
Yeah, well,
consent
take a look, just take a look at what's happened in the past.
Yeah, I want to echo Dee's point. I think town meeting and the run-up to town meeting is an education opportunity to let people know that the Tier 3 stuff that you're not asking for this year is out there. And Parashar and I have talked about this, I know we've all been thinking about it. It's actually kind of misleading to look at our future debt reduction in relation to the school if you're not also thinking about the fact that there's going to be other debt hitting us because the police station's going to fall down. We've got a lot of deferred maintenance and deferred investment in that kind of public infrastructure in Concord. And we need the town to understand that and be prepared to consider it. And I think we should be doing that preparatory work starting now. So I understand the constraints of time at town meeting, and I understand the time constraints you work under generally, but I don't want to miss an opportunity to let people know that there's a need here and that it's gone unmet for too long. And we're going to need to be spending the money on it in the next couple of years. We're going to need to borrow.
Amrith, anyone else? Lindsay, Kathy, questions on Zoom, or you guys are good?
No, I hope I'm just following along.
Okay.
Question, one last one, I promise.
Yep.
Well, now, ARPA update, what's the status and how much is going to be?
We'll get there. Let's go to Tier 3.
So Tier 3, there's no projects that are presented, but as, as Lois said, there's still those 3 facility projects, Public Works, Public Safety Building, and the fire station down at,
Walden Street.
Yes, thank you. And then also the infrastructure. So those are 4 potential Tier 3 that I would expect you'll hear more of in the coming years.
So can we go to the next slide now? I'm going to get on my high horse again just for a minute. So when we say nothing's proposed for next year, and we talk about future CIP, I'm going back to the capital planning task force that we had, right? This notion 5-year plan. And I understand we're following some elements but not other elements, and I know the schools are following some elements and not other elements. And hopefully we can all get to a point where we're following the same processes. But, the goal was, out of those recommendations, a 5-year plan. And even if, you're not asking for money. If you think something's going to start, it ought to be on the plan. How do I interpret nothing in the plan now? So are we presuming or implying that we don't think these 4 areas need any Tier 3 money for the next 5 years, or should we not read into that? How should we read this?
You should not read into that.
Okay.
So the first year post-capital planning task force,
Yep.
where I think we followed the process to a T, we put forward information on these different items
Yep.
using the data that we had, which we acknowledged was not good data. It was very ballpark. Some of it was from the facility study that we did in 2020. And my recollection is we got a lot of pushback on the numbers that we were using, that because people wanted to, they didn't think that this was 5 million or this was 10 million. And so the next year, because we know it's not good, we kind of backed away from those numbers and plugged some things in. And now this year, the third year, well, we're not even following the same process. So we don't have any data we don't have anything new. We hope to have something new. We have not, for the facilities, we have not targeted any particular date. At one point, we talked about maybe fiscal 28, 29, when the elementary school debt rolled off. But we have not advanced any plans, conceptual or otherwise, for any of those facilities. I think one thing that I was hoping we might have available for this time was more data on the roads, the public works. And we tried, we had sort of a last-ditch effort to pull things together, and it just seemed like it was too rushed. And then recognize that the Transportation Advisory Committee is going through a transportation study, and that it would make more sense to bring a holistic report back to you and the community.
So in your mind, that will come before these other buildings?
Oh, yeah, I would expect next year we would see something. And maybe next year we would have a better idea of, were we looking to move public works or public safety first, and maybe a better idea of the cost estimate.
So let me just follow up on that, Don, and then I'll get to you, and then unless you want to say something. So when you say we'll have a better idea next year, are you, again, I'm a simpleton, right? And so it is January 2024, we're talking about fiscal year 2025 spend.
Yeah.
And this time next year, are you saying, well, December, at the end of the year, when we should have a capital plan according to the process that we had recommended, are you saying that some of these items might show up on that 5-year plan?
So the public works infrastructure, yes.
Starting for fiscal year 26 or later?
For fiscal 26.
Okay, that's helpful.
The facilities, we do have feasibility money available.
Okay.
So I would hope that we would have something better than what we have now in terms of cost estimates.
And that would also then show up in that 5-year horizon. That's why I don't want to hold you to it, but I'm trying to understand.
Probably in the outer years. I mean, it's no secret that the facilities costs are $50 to $100 million. So when we need to do it and when we can afford to do it, those two things aren't going to match up. And so is it possible that we would be looking at something, if we're talking about 26 to 30, maybe in 29 or 30, but I'm not sure there's an appetite to do something of that size.
Well, and I think
that's part of
fair.
the factors into it.
Look, no, I think that's fair, right? But I think one of the things that the goal of the capital planning process was at least put it out there as early warning. Whether there's appetite or not when we get there is a separate story, right? And so I think if you feel like at the end of the day, by 29 or 30, we ought to actually start digging, then we ought to at least put it on there, because it'll be in the out years of the 5 years. Now, whether 2 years from now, there's an appetite, as you said, to do it or to kick it down further, that's a separate question, right? And one that needs to be considered. But I think I would encourage us through the summer, as we think about this, if it's in there, put it in there, rather than trying to weigh whether there's an appetite. Don, and then Lois.
Carrie, I was thinking that just the school's core competency is education. So when it comes time to build new buildings, they form a building committee to bring in sort of that expertise from the community. And the town's core competency is operating the town, but we have these facility needs that are coming out of this master plan, so something for you to consider. Do you think it would be beneficial, following the planning process, to form a town building committee?
Were you eavesdropping on a meeting we had in this room a few hours ago? Anthony and I were talking about that, and about the need or does it make sense to have a permanent building committee? And I really couldn't believe that those words came out of my mouth. But when you have so many facilities needs, and we know that the school is also involved in a facility study that's going to result in some level of need, that it probably makes sense to be able to put all of these through a committee to help prioritize. So yeah, we were talking about that just earlier today.
But there's just so much expertise within our community, I'm
Yeah.
sure we could leverage it.
I think Don has just volunteered for a committee after Finance Committee, but Lois?
I don't know that I have much to add to what Parashar and Don have been saying. I hear the concern about there being an appetite for this, but I think it's part of our role as a finance committee to not just to make specific recommendations on specific proposals, but to take the longer view and to share what we've learned with the town. You know, people understood that a new middle school needed to be built because they had kids in the middle school, and they saw the condition those buildings were in, and that project still got delayed far beyond the point where it should have been, and probably cost tens of millions of dollars more than it would have if it had been done years ago. It would be nice to avoid that happening again. And we do need, but the need for the police to be sitting in a functioning modern facility, and for these very expensive trucks to be stored somewhere so they don't rust out before the end of their useful life, those needs are not as obvious to the people in town. They'll only notice them when the roads don't get plowed because the truck's rusted out, or when the police don't respond because the dispatch system improvements weren't funded. So I would urge you to give us the tools we need to communicate the longer-term picture, even if we can't be specific about the exact window or the exact amounts. I think there's a risk of our making the perfect be the enemy of the good, and I do think these are important, massive projects that we have an obligation to be educating people about.
So I appreciate the comments. I understand what you're saying, and we're not trying to take a decision-making process away from anybody. In my mind, these projects and these decisions are more difficult. With the middle school, we knew where the new building would be built, right? With Public Works, is it going to stay on Keyes Road? Is it going to go someplace else? Is it going to go to 2229 Main Street, and that's available in 29 or 30? Is Public Safety going to stay on Walden Street, or are we going to continue to maintain 2 stations? Is it going to come over here? Where we're not just going to build a new building on the side of the old building and demolish it. So there's a level of complexity, I think, to these building projects that didn't necessarily exist with the school, because we knew where the building was going to be. Now, it was hard getting that project approved, but we didn't talk too much about where the school was going to go.
But the through line is, it all has to happen.
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of people who care a lot about the quality of life in this town who aren't fully aware of that. And if we can help raise their awareness of that, then as the studies give you the information to make the recommendations about those specifics, I think you're more likely to get the buy-in because there'll be a more informed public making the decisions.
Yeah, Carrie, really appreciate your concern over the sequencing of our large capital projects, which I know we've had at least one, if not more, capital planning studies done with committees from the town over the years, and all of these things have been on that capital list. So they're certainly in the atmosphere. If they're not in 5 years, it's 10, whatever. And I, and the whole purpose of that has always been sequencing the debt. And I really appreciate your concern over that. And I also appreciate the complexity of, the number of facilities and, where they may all go. Is there consolidation in all one location, et cetera? So maybe pushing it out more to Pershar's comment, pushing it out to a 10-year list and then just putting it in italics. So it's like a professional estimate, otherwise known as a WAG. But it's out there and it's on the list for future consideration. So that's thinking.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Keep plowing here.
I have a question. My question goes along with the slide before. Right now, in today's dollars, can you give me a rough estimate of those 4 projects, how much it would cost if we did it tomorrow? You cannot, because you don't have the property, you don't have the...
No, she didn't ask you, Don. She asked.
I know, but I want to answer for him.
No,
I can tell you, construction cost alone, in my last position, when I was building a senior center, we started the process, the estimated cost was about $650 a square foot. COVID happened, and then the next thing you know, we were pushing $1,000 a square foot. So a project that was originally going to look at about $10 million climbed up to about $15 million that fast. So and this is the tough part about projecting out these costs for these buildings, because then people want to hold you to a number too.
I get
So I
that.
would say that $1,000 a square foot, I think we identified in the previous presentation, size of a building that we would need for public safety and for Kai's Road. I don't have that in front of me. I don't know, Kevin, you probably don't remember that either, but it's considerable. Like Gary said, could it be pushed $30 to $50 million per building?
Right. So we can just multiply 50 times 4, right?
Sounds good.
$50 million.
Eric?
It's a big number.
I'm just-
Joking.
It's more,
$3
it's
signs.
more than $100 million if you're adding inroads.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if you have to acquire property for
Right.
those, then that's an additional cost.
right.
And depending on what that property is, there's the site work that adds up too.
Right.
So there's a lot
So
of,
we are talking in the next 10 to maybe 12 years, all of those will occur. We just don't know the timing, we don't know the cost, we don't know what the burden is going to be, we don't know what what it'll do to tax rates and all of that.
The need will occur.
The need, right,
Will
that's
occur,
exactly right.
Yes.
The need will occur whether we have the appetite, as Carrie said earlier, at that time. Who knows, but I think it's important.
Okay.
And then we'll move on, that we at least flag it for folks. Eric?
And to that point, these earliest studies, especially in the facilities, were done before my time in Concord. So I'm not necessarily as caught up. But understanding why we need to replace them, I think, is important to communicate to the public. With the middle school, to Lois's point, we all had a pretty good idea why we needed to build a new middle school. But here, I don't know that that's necessarily clear. Is it space? Are the buildings structurally deficient? Is it just the systems are falling apart? What is driving the need?
So let me just, and then you can, Carrie actually did a pretty good job at the public hearing last year. One of the things I would advise you to do, I'll send you the deck from last year, and she laid out the need pretty clearly
Yeah.
for some of these, including pictures and
And
stuff.
it's all of the things that you mentioned, depending on which building you're in. Some of it is more, we've just outgrown the facility, so maybe just some expansion. But at the headquarters station, there's an inch of clearance to get a truck into the building. There's some structural issues. There's some safety concerns. Somebody mentioned storage of vehicles and equipment at Public Works that are not undercover, so the useful life is reduced for that. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, one of the practice that I did in another community is I had an open house. So when we started talking about replacing it, we invited the public to come and walk through so you can see visually, what some of the deficiencies are. And it's pretty clear when somebody walks through. Right away, you'll understand why we're trying to address the issue.
Okay, operating is next, right?
Inflating the tires is not an option.
There's stories.
Not for public safety.
Not for
You-
public safety.
It's
That-
been done. I can tell you.
I know, I was
Another
going to
community,
say
it's
it
been done.
happens. It
Yeah.
happens.
So let me. Get the right one. Pull up the wrong one. Is this the right one?
No, that's the right one.
Yeah, this is the right one now. Thank you. All right, so the operating budget. So let me start by saying that this is still a work in progress, and I'm happy to say that we've met the guideline that was FinCom placed, but we're still working within the departments on shifting some funds around. So this is still a work in progress. Again, that was the guideline that was set by the FinCom, which we met, was $32,745,639, which is 3.26% of our operating, the increase to our operating budget. So general government, here's a comparison of the last couple of fiscal years, and then what was requested, what we tentatively have as going forward for FY ’25. I can go through them, or if you have questions, we're happy to answer questions on general government.
So that adjustment for $500,000, that's what you're still working on?
So no, what I did there, Chris, is that I just apportioned based on their budget compared to our town budget, and just gave every department a bit of the hit. So if you see, like in a pretty obvious one is legal services. So that's an odd number, 388,000. So that was just because I decreased their share of the 517,000.
I see.
No questions with general government? Okay. The finance department,
I don't see anything for salaries for finance committee members.
We had to cut that.
zero to the end of what we currently get.
We have to pay that.
By 100%.
Planning and land management, it's the slight increase there, here. The human services budget, again, this is a real tight budget for next fiscal year. I've talked to Kerry about that. It's tight, so this is gonna be a year to really watch.
So can you just talk a little bit about what's happening with costs in terms of employee costs? Are they 10% higher than last year? Or are they 5% lower than they were? And is it difficult to find people? And where do the people live who are working here?
So we are projecting about a 3% overall increase in personnel costs. We are not projecting any FTE increase. I will mention, so our guideline on a dollar basis allowed for $1,033,000. About $600,000 of that is for cost of living adjustments. And then we're still
for cost of
about
living?
600,000.
Thank you.
And then we're working with the $515,000 deficit that we're still figuring out how to allocate. So you can see that's pretty much it. So we met the guideline. We're not happy about it. We're not quite finished. We know this isn't 100% right. Before the meeting, we went through, we made a couple of other adjustments, but all still within the guideline. We are having less difficulty filling positions than we did before the recent class and comp study. I think that's partly it. I think the other part is we're getting our act together, and we're spending a lot more time recruiting in different places, and so I feel very good about the people that we've been able to hire and the recruitments and the quality of the candidates. Feeling like you have a choice, that's nice, and I think some of our neighboring communities are still kind of coming out of COVID and not feeling like they have a lot of choices. And we're doing it without providing remote work opportunities. I know there are communities that do that. That doesn't seem to work real well here, so that's a competitive disadvantage, I think, that we face, but we're still doing well. Employees, I feel strongly about hiring people that are within a reasonable commuting distance. This community has been able to attract people who will agree to big commutes to start, and we've hired those people, and that hasn't worked out real well. So we are trying to be more thoughtful about that. So people are generally in the area. I feel much better about the diversity in the workforce. We've been able to make a dent there. We've always had a decent amount of diversity in our technology positions and engineering positions, but we see more women in jobs traditionally held by men, and we just have a higher percentage of minority applicants, and we've been able to make some progress there. So that's been good as well. We do have 5 of 6 of the union contracts are up for negotiation, and we have not started any of those negotiations yet, but that, we have to fit that within our salary reserve as well.
When was the 6th one, the one that's not involved? When did that contract, when was that renewed? Like a year ago?
Fiscal 23, yes.
Fiscal 23. So that's somewhat of a barometer going forward? Or is that not a topic that should be discussed?
Well,
I don't,
honestly, what the school does is going to be the barometer for what we will see on the town side. And we're going through the process at roughly the same timetable, but that's probably will be the biggest indication.
The town still seems to have some key positions left to fill.
Can we use the microphone, please?
The town still has some key positions left to fill. In the light plant, we have an interim manager.
Can I,
And the town
let me just
accountant as well.
interrupt for 1 second. Let's go through the rest of it, and then if there's other topics not covered, we can come back to that. Keep going.
Yeah, and to add what Kerry said, the fire department is is the only contract that had true personnel costs in there. Everybody else is baked into the salary reserve. So that's why that was a little bit of a larger increase than compared to other departments. Public Works, again, very modest increases. Town government, unclassified is, the reserve fund stays the same. The salary reserve, again, that's one of those areas that took a hit in spreading that 517 out amongst all areas. So that's why that is an odd number.
So just,
back.
can we just go
Yeah,
back to
go
the
back
total?
to
So
that.
first of all, thank you for meeting the guidelines. And I think, for the record, just, that's a 3.3% increase. So it's not a lot, as Carrie said. They managed to hit it, and so thank you. So relative to fiscal year '24 revised, it's a 3.3% increase. These are numbers that we all ought to keep in mind. Lots of numbers floating around what increases are, et cetera, and I think it's important to keep that in mind when folks are doing apples-to-apples comparison.
3.26, but.
Excuse
us for not smiling when I say that. It's
3.26, not
yeah.
3.6?
3.26, that was what the guideline was, so.
3.3.
Barasha just rounded it up.
He was rounding.
3 decimal points you're gonna go with.
I had heard of
If we could round up, I would
Yeah,
have, this will change a little bit if you want to allow me to round up.
Right.
Let's keep going.
Okay, and for joint accounts, the change really, we decreased actually the group of health insurance. Carrie, you want to?
Sure. So we will be moving health insurance providers, carriers from where we are. We're currently in a joint purchasing cooperative with 14 other municipalities and school districts. We've been a member of that group since the 90s. That group has decided to disband at the end of this fiscal year. We were looking at leaving anyway, so this was not a surprise to us. And actually, the group folding probably leaves us in a little bit of a better position than had we left if they were still operating. So our insurance advisory committee met this afternoon and collectively agreed that we would be moving to MIA, which is the Mass Interlocal Insurance Association. We have a lot of experience with them. We get virtually every other piece of insurance from them besides health insurance. They have about 200 municipalities in that group. So we will be migrating over to that group as of July 1st. We will see some savings. The town will see some savings because we have a couple of higher cost. We have 3 health insurance plans right now through our joint purchasing cooperative. 2 of them, the cost is higher than Maya. 1 of them is lower. We still have significant enrollment in the higher cost plan, so we do expect to see some savings overall. But there will be some run-on claims that have to be paid through the closure of the other group, and we don't yet have a handle on that. So we are recommending a slight reduction in the budget for health insurance, and we may do better than that, but because we don't know the full value of the run-on claims, we couldn't reduce it any further.
Yeah, and the only other significant increases is our property and liability insurance. The rates are just going through the roof. So that was a really big hit for FY '25. Excuse me.
And it's been for 3 or 4 years.
So on the group insurance, we're going from 8.14 to roughly 8 million. Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay. So on this page, one of the things I think is really important, and it comes across when you do the bottom line of an 8.4% increase. And it actually, that's a bit of a, what's the right word? It's not exactly accurate because there's lots of things going on, right? And so one of the things that when you do this, if you take a look at the town's share of the operating plus the town debt, because you can't disentangle the benefits piece clearly. It's only a 2.52% increase.
What is?
If you take the town operating money, and then you take a look at the lines that show the spending for debt expenses attributable to the town, both within the levy limit and excluded, it was 35.7 million in fiscal year '24, and it's going up to 36.6, only 2.52%. The vast majority of this 8% increase is because the CPS principal and interest debt excluded from the levy limit grew 75% year over year. So this is something that is, it gives the wrong perspective of what's going on to town accounts. And that just, we all need to be mindful of that. I'm happy to do a summary of it, but we cannot have folks go out and talk about these numbers as being town spending. So the last question I have for you guys, is there any way, even a rough way, to break out whether it's membership in retirement, whether it's enrollees and/or FTEs for the joint accounts on benefits that are both CPS and town? So I don't need an answer, just whether it's whatever percent you can give would be helpful prior to when we write up our report, frankly, because I really do want to paint a clear picture of what is attributable to town and what is attributable to schools.
And the argument, though, because I posed this to, at another meeting, and the superintendent said, well, she is a town employee. So how, so in doing it, yes, I can see them combined, but is it really practical to try to separate them and try to be able to articulate that in a way that every person in our community would be able to understand it and accept it?
Well, we certainly can break it out. There are communities that completely break it out when they appropriate the budget. They have school benefits with the school and town benefits with the town. We don't do that here, and we wouldn't recommend doing that here, but we certainly can break it out.
For display purposes, it would be helpful for us.
We can. So for insurance, I think we can do it with the property liability, for the health insurance,
Whatever
property
we
liability.
can do. It'll only go in our finance committee report, and we want to be very clear what's what. That's all it is for.
The retirement is,
Sorry? Town meeting slideshow, you got it. And frankly, the cover letter we're going to have.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 'cause when I looked at this, I was like, so in any case, I made my statement.
I just said, head count, just remind me in your plan, what's happening to head count here?
So we are at about 268 FTEs. I think if you look
In the head count? for
Yeah,
the-
if
for
you
the
look
plan?
in the budget book, I think you will see maybe 262 or something. We have scrubbed our data. We have spent months scrubbing the data, and what we found is in certain cases where we have a part-time, like a permanent part-time or a limited status, which is a temporary employee, in some cases their fraction of FTE was counted, in other cases it wasn't. So there isn't an increase in FTE. We just were not consistent in the past with whether we were counting particularly limited status who are temporary.
Okay, so you're saying you really are flat, but what does your record show? Your record would show an increase, is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think so. If we went back and restated everything, I'm not sure that we're going to spend the time to go back and
So
restate.
you're not hiring
but
people, is what you're telling me in this
we're not
budget?
hiring,
That's what I'm
no.
trying to get
So
to.
it's roughly 262?
Right, we're showing 268 now,
Okay.
counting
Okay.
all part-time, limited status.
But that's FTE though, or no?
That's FTE, that's
That's
FTE.
FTE, okay.
Yes.
And you don't have any headcount supported by ARPA, nothing's going to come flopping back into the budget when,
We're not proposing any of that for fiscal '25. You may remember that the DEI Commission
Yes.
has expressed an interest in a position. We have not specifically accounted for that, but we're not also excluding that. We are potentially looking to repurpose an FTE. We do have a lot of moving parts, so that we haven't been able to make a decision on that, but that position may be included, but if it is, it will be at the expense of another position that we find that we don't need any longer.
and your org structure now, so sort of are you sort of done? So we have you, we have a deputy town manager, we have another role that's like an assistant town manager.
Assistant town
Could you just speak to
manager,
that? So
yes.
are we
Sure.
sort of done there?
I hope we're done. Carlin mentioned we'll be in the market for a light plant director. And we're always going to have a transition. What we have tried to do is to build some resilience and succession planning within the organization, so we don't find ourselves in the position that we've been for the last couple of years, trying to make sure we hire good people and create paths for them to advance. So I do have 2 assistant town managers now. One is, and we had one, so I recognize that is a change. Megan Zamuto, who is the deputy town manager, is also the director of planning and land management, so we did not fill that position. No, we don't. Jess Porter, who was just hired as the assistant town manager, is, I would say, filling the role of our former deputy town manager, who was the human services director. Jess is also serving as the interim HR director and may continue in that. So
you might not hire
we
for
might
that
not
role.
hire an HR director. She may have those 2 departments.
Is the consultant still here, or the consultant is
The
gone?
the HR consultant is still
She's still
here.
here.
And because we also do not have our assistant HR director position filled. So she's doing project work for us and some organizational analysis, and there may still be change, but I think at the highest level in the organization, I wouldn't expect there to be additional change.
So there's not a big assumption of attrition in these numbers, right? So you're not assuming a lot of open spots that helps us make
No,
the budget?
we're
That's
not,
what I'm
we're
trying to
not
understand.
assuming.
Okay.
There may be some places where we postpone hiring for 90 days or so for some budget flexibility.
So one question on FTEs, and thank you for the 268, because again, lots of numbers going around about increases in town employees, et cetera. And for the record, 237.08 FTEs in 2019. And if we're at 268 for 2025 budget, it represents an annual growth increase of 2.1%. So, and just, I don't have the latest census figures, but roughly 1% a year in terms of population growth. So this is not something that is exorbitant, out of control, et cetera. And again, thanks to you and prior leadership in terms of making sure we're growing at a reasonable level in terms of FTEs as well. And this is, I'll send these numbers to you. It'll be in the report that we prepare. But again, just to make sure we're providing context for folks as we think about what we're spending.
That's good. And level service, so this is pretty, we're not, is there any new services buried in here somewhere that I haven't really seen any?
So
That ambulance thing was in there, but I think it's out now, or?
Well, we haven't made a decision on ambulance. We would expect that if we move to offering paramedic level service, that we are offsetting that with increased fees, more or less. We're looking at overtime. You know, I think I probably have mentioned to you before, one of the struggles is people don't want to work the overtime that they used to, and it's hard for quality of life and retaining employees, so we're doing some analysis on trade-offs, hiring somebody versus forcing people to do overtime, because for every vacancy we have in public safety, it costs us $11,000 a month in just extra overtime. So that there's a big training cost there. So level services, that's an interesting question. The thing that popped into my mind is we're doing more with public health nursing. So we have hired a public health nurse. We have a new contract for mental health sort of wraparound services. Those really are in place of making reductions other places. So, you know, no net increase, but we're making trade-offs. But we have placed some emphasis on public health nursing.
Carlin, you had a question about CMLP. Did it get answered?
Yes, but it was about ARPA, the status of the ARPA.
Yep, well, I mean, while we're on FTEs, let's just, any other questions on FTEs before we get to,
Yeah,
is this a question on FTEs?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect, go ahead.
So my question is more about, you've introduced some flexibility in your hiring practices, and you've also had to take into consideration various factors about where people live and commuting distance and all that. And so I'm kind of wondering, how comfortable do you feel with your process, what you are doing, and in meeting the guideline? Or would you have liked a higher guideline or a lower guideline?
She didn't really need to ask about the second one.
I mean, that's,
It's a fair question.
you know what we really would have appreciated more than more or less money is more time. It's really been a struggle pulling a budget together in the time that we had available with the staff. And I think we could have done better if we had more time, and I think we hope to do better next year. There are a number of things in play right now. You know, so we're at 268 FTE. We might be less next year. We might be able to propose less or different. I do think any position we shed, I would like to add it to Public Works, because we need more people in Public Works.
So is this kind of a lead-in to maybe talking to the town moderator about having town meeting in June? We can have it in June if we like.
No, we don't.
Is it
No,
that
that's
timeframe?
that's not the kind of time I was thinking.
Oh, all right.
No, and
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
if I had the team that I have now in place in June, we would be in a different place. I mean, we do think that the budget process is a little more advanced in time than it should be, but we're not. No, we do not want a June town meeting.
You do not want
Do
one.
not. It would be
What?
nicer if we were working on budget a little bit later in the fall than we do. And with the conversion of our accounting system that got pushed out to October 1st, and just trying to get data from two different systems to analyze it, it's just there are a lot of moving pieces right now. So sure, if the guideline was higher, it would have been easier for us to produce a balanced budget. It wouldn't have been a better budget, but it would have been easier to get to.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking, well, gee, we haven't sent this out to department heads yet, so I'm sure they're gonna give us some feedback and wish that their budgets looked a lot different.
Okay, so let's go to Carlin had a question on ARPA. I did too, but perhaps you're asking the same
Do you
question.
want
Just
Hey,
the
into
status,
the microphone. Sorry? What was the question?
just the status on the ARPA fund.
Start, okay.
So for, the town received $5.6 million. We've allocated that equally over 4 fiscal years, so about $1.3 million per fiscal year. For fiscal '25, we allocated 50% of ARPA through the capital planning process. We have 50% less left to allocate. What we wanted to do was wait to see what didn't make it into our capital process, what may have not made it into the CPC process. And we are aware, particularly from the Affordable Housing Trust, that it has an interest in some funding. And there are a couple of other groups that are interested. So we do expect to open up a round of ARPA with 50% of the, about 50% of the annual allocation to see what we get and make some decisions about what we might fund.
So is that like 650,000? Are we talking? Is it 1.3 million per year? So
Yeah,
650,000?
yeah, 600,000 or 700,000.
I'm sorry, so I'm going back, I'm confused now because in the September, October presentation, the ARPA amount for fiscal year '24 was 1.32, right?
Yeah.
And all of that got spent or appropriated or
Well,
allocated?
it's been allocated to projects
It
for
has,
fiscal
okay.
'24.
For fiscal year
Yeah,
'24,
so now
okay.
we're talking about
Yep.
'25.
So do we have a list of those projects for '24 by any chance, or no?
We do. You've seen them before. We can redistribute
Can you
them.
redistribute that for me
Yeah.
also? And then now on the '25, it was 1.3 million, not 600, so I'm confused about the 600.
So
just trying to do both at the same
1.3 in total, 50% we've allocated through the capital planning
Okay,
process.
got it.
And so
Okay.
we have another 50%
That you're going to open
that
up.
yeah.
And of the 50% through the capital planning process for town budgets, it's on, some of that is in the list that you guys shared a couple hours ago, or no?
I don't know that you showed that spreadsheet.
No, I did not show that spreadsheet.
Okay. If
So-
you could just send it later, that would be good. That's all.
Gary, I should know this, but don't we have to spend the ARPA money by a certain date? And what
We
is
do.
that date?
We do, 12/31/2026.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So whatever you've got allocated would be good. Just send it along later.
And don't we, and along the same lines, I used to work on this in my day job, but it's been a while. Don't we, and the feds use a different word for, I think you're using the word allocation, but don't the funds have to be obligated by the end
Obligated,
of this
committed.
calendar year?
So when there's been a lot that's happened if you've been out of the ARPA business
Yeah,
for
been
a
out of
while.
the-
So,
out of the
I mean,
game for a while.
I'd literally, a month doesn't go by where they're not talking about doing something different. So I don't know that we have what I will say is, we took 100% of the money in as lost revenue. That obligated it, and we decided to allocate it over 4 years. It may be based on the Fed's interest in cobbling that back, that we have to come up with a creative way to allocate, obligate, commit fiscal '26, because fiscal '26 ends June 30, 2027, and we know we have to have it something by 12/31/26. So we may have to advance our consideration for our fiscal '26 to meet the federal requirements. But it's really still in flux what's happening. But I do think you can make a case that we took ours in as lost revenue. So it's revenue, and how we allocate it should not matter to the federal government. Or over what period we allocate shouldn't matter.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to turn it over to Dee to have us go through the minutes.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you and to introduce our assistant CFO, who
Oh.
is really.
You should have put her on the hot seat.
This is Liz Roth. So Liz
How you
started with
doing?
us in December, and all she's been doing is trying to work on this budget. So without her, I don't know where
I'm assuming, Carrie, she's the quality hire and not Anthony?
Exactly.
They both are. They both are. Welcome.
All right, yeah. All right, thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Carrie. I appreciate it. We appreciate it, especially for hitting the guidelines. Thank you. Dee, turn it over to you.
Oh, well, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve tonight. The first one is November 14th, 2023. And I really appreciate everybody who's come up to me, and they had some corrections, but you have to announce them at the meeting. So I'll start with Chris.
Okay, so I have one on the, these are the minutes of the 14th,
We're
Dee?
just doing the 14th.
Right, okay, so under item 4 on the first page, item 4A, tier 1 to 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, I think it's,
Aside in a couple of different funding rounds.
no, it's, yeah, is it $3 million or $300,000?
It is $300,000.
I thought so, so I think that you've got a little.
Carolyn noticed that one
Yeah,
too. so
okay.
She beat you to that.
Okay.
Publicly.
That's all I had on the
Okay.
14th.
And anyone else? Carlin?
All right, in that same paragraph, it's the town manager instead of the town manger.
Well,
You have
it
that
was
typo
holiday
there.
time. It was getting the holiday time.
Holiday time. And November 14th, that was the only one that I had on November 14th besides the one that
Okay,
Chris mentioned.
So shall we approve these?
Because it's roll call.
Yeah, let's do them all and then approve them as amended.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so that's November 14th. We do not have November 16th. We're still looking for the YouTube version of it in order to create the minutes. So we'll proceed to the November 27th. And I will make the first correction, which is under item 2, and it is line 1, 2, 3 down. It has here town, CPS, and CCRHS. It should be, the acronym should be CCRSD, Regional School District.
Okay.
I have a question or comment.
Yep.
That same paragraph, the COLA increase that's cited there, you have written 2.5%. It should be 2.3%.
Yep.
So,
Is that correct?
Because
Okay.
that's the estimate that's
That
contained
was
within
the
our
estimate
calculation.
Lindsay gave us.
Yeah,
which is a
2.3.
It's a
Okay.
deduced
Is that also
number.
yours, Chris?
Yes, that's the same
Okay.
thing I sent you.
so can we, so if Lindsay gave that number,
No, Lindsay did not give that
so where did that
number.
number come from?
It's just a typo.
It's the art, no, what 2.5, I don't know, but
2.5
2.3
is
was
a
the
mistake.
artifact of the
2.3 was from the meeting.
model.
Yeah, 2.3.
2.3 is from the model.
Yeah.
Okay.
It-
All right.
Okay, so let's make it very clear.
It's math.
Well, I understand. Let me
Yeah.
hold that thought for a minute.
In
So
a COLA model?
whatever we
There's
use,
no COLA model, it was just math. I'm not a fan of calling that the COLA increase because
no,
it's
exactly.
not.
That's my point
It's
here,
not.
right? So it's not the COLA increase. So we either just say the increase for the schools, period.
Allows
is
for an
fine.
approximate or something.
Well,
allows
I
for
don't
an
want to call it a
approximate
COLA increase because that's really not what it is, right?
Okay.
So I would recommend we just say increases for the schools and just period,
Okay.
because it's a lot more complex than just a COLA
It wasn't
increase.
really COLA, it was a salary increase.
Well, it was a bunch of other things, and I don't know that we need to get into it in the minutes here.
It was in the materials, though, Parashar. It was on the screen, right?
What does Lindsay think?
It's the rest of it.
Yeah.
Lindsay, do you want to add anything to the discussion up again?
Well, I was saying that the 3.26 budget increase for the schools allows for an approximate 2.5 increase in COLA when we were doing the math.
Can we
So
say increase
that's-
in exactly.
Yeah,
Thank
that's the
you.
right way to say it.
That's the way to
Because
say
it could
it.
be anything. It could be anything.
Thank you.
All else equal, and you have to write like,
All
'cause I
else
think I
equals.
said this a couple times, like all else equal.
Exactly,
All else equal?
yes.
Yeah, at the end of the sentence. So the 3.26% budget
No, no, no,
increase for the
2.3.
schools allows for an approximate 2.5%
Nope.
increase in the COLA, all else equal.
Not COLA, please.
Personnel expense.
Okay,
It's not 2.5, it's 2.3.
2.3.
okay. I don't have it right in front of me.
2.3 increase
The
in personnel
3.26,
expenses.
who wants to read this? The 3.2% budget increase for the schools provides a 2.5 or 2.3?
2.3
2.3
increase in personnel expenses.
increase in personnel expenses, personnel.
All other things being equal.
All other things being
Expenses.
equal.
All other things.
And I think it's less provides and more implies.
That's right. It's
Yeah.
deduced.
Implies.
Implies, right.
Okay, because we didn't actually say anything about this. And we need to be very clear legally that we don't get into.
Yeah, no, I
3.26% budget increase.
And I would say implies an approximate 2.3%.
I like that. Applies.
Implies.
Implies. and
Implies an approximate
Yeah, that, I like that.
An approximate
2.3% increase personnel expenses, LLC.
2.3% increase in the personal expenses, all other things being.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Personnel, not personal, personnel. Yeah, have a chocolate.
Look, I started it. We had a lot of takers on that.
Yeah, let's get those going again. What the heck? Okay, what other corrections in this set the November 27th meeting?
I have another one.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
On item number 10, just a couple of typos there. Item number 10 is the third of the last sentence. Meeting will be to clarify, not clarity.
I'm sorry,
And-
what are we talking?
This is on the 12-14 minutes, item
No,
number
we're
10.
not there yet.
27.
We're not there yet.
No,
Give me a
we are.
break.
We're still on November 27th.
We're on November 27th.
Never mind, sorry.
Woo.
You're right, I screwed up.
Anything else on November 27th?
No.
All right, let's move on to 12-14. Carlin.
Okay, now we can go. Okay. Item number 10, the third of the last line.
Third of the last line.
It starts, meeting will be to clarity. No, it should be clarify. And improved, it should be improve, present tense.
To clarify, okay.
And improve in understanding of the content. That's it.
Understanding of the content. Chris? you
No,
have
I'm good.
anything?
I'm good.
Anybody else have anything?
Can I get a motion,
December
please?
14.
I move to approve the minutes of November 14th, 2023, November 27th, 2023, and December 14th, 2023 as amended.
Second.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Okay, let me get my roll call sheet. We can go around the room. All right. Peggy Briggs.
Aye.
Carlin Reed.
Aye.
Don Pupka.
Aye.
Lois Wassoff.
Aye.
Chris Reynolds.
Aye.
Parashar.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Who's, Dee Ortner? Yes. Okay, where are we? We are Lindsay Liss.
Aye.
Who else? do we
Amrith
have?
Kathy Kukla.
Amrith, yes.
Kathy Kukla. We'll do up that.
That was an aye.
Turn your mic on.
Go to the next person.
Aye.
Okay, Amrith, thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have anybody else up there?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
All right, so it's unanimous?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item is public comment. Do we have any public comment? Do we have any members of the public left? Oh, one person.
Yes.
Name, rank, and serial number.
I'm Bev Bryant, 175 Conant Street. I'm here about the turf fields. Same as Janet, we're bookending you here. This may not in many ways be the right place to come. I'm sure you would like the turf fields brought under whatever committee it is supposed to come under. Our problem is we can't figure that out. We'd love to be part of the conversation, but we don't know who we're talking to. The school, DPW, Recreation Department, the Friends, FinCom. So the process is very obscure. So I'm at FinCom, so let's talk money. The replacement fields in Newton was something like 2.5 to 3.5 million. Right now, this stuff, as Janet pointed out, is just sitting in warehouses in Pennsylvania. There is no plan. They are trying to create a recreation facility. It is not happening. In 12 years' time, when they come around again, it's entirely possible that there will be nowhere to put them. So when you're looking at turf fields, you really have to take a 16-year spread to cover their replacement and disposal. The grass fields, organic grass, always comes out much, much cheaper than artificial turf. Artificial turf is about the most expensive thing you can do. And then when you add to that the possibility of PFAS in the water draining out of these fields, we don't know, but certainly the wells that have the PFAS are the ones that drain these fields. And that has been the case in many other towns around Greater Boston area. To replace a field with grass, I understand, and I have to confirm, is about $800,000. I understand that the Friends have about 1.6 million. Hey, we could get those fields out, replace them with grass, buy one of those Roomba lawnmowers, and it could be just a whole lot cheaper, and it wouldn't come around again and again and again. To say nothing of the injuries, the heat, which is going to get worse, and the fact that we have our children playing on toxic chemicals. So I'm sorry if we feel like a hot potato. I certainly don't want to be one. Maybe if this issue is talked about openly, maybe if the committees, wherever it is, whoever makes the decision about this stuff, if we could have an open conversation, we would love to be a part of that. I think we do have something to offer. But in the meantime, I would say these fields are costing an awful lot of money to avoid canceling games from time to time. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Bev, thank you for the comments. I do note, and I appreciate that you don't know where to go. I'm not sure where to send you. However, it's definitely not the FinCom, number one. But number two, we have both Henry Dane and Terry Ackerman, select board members, sitting here listening, and we have Carrie sitting here and listening. And I'm sure among the three of them, they can tell you who's responsible for the fields and the maintenance, et cetera. So I will, it's a school committee? Peggy Briggs knows this for a fact? You will swear, sorry?
They own the property.
They own the property? Who does? Okay. And have you gone to the school committee, Bev, or no?
No, we started with the rec commission and then decided to come to you, so
Okay. Here's my recommendation. So my recommendation is to send a letter in writing to the Concord Carlisle Regional School District indicating exactly what you'd like, et cetera, and ask them to have you come before them, explain the situation, and see what they have to say.
Okay, that sounds helpful. Thank you.
You can copy us, and you can copy the select board, and you can copy Carrie. Okay?
Okay. Okay.
And send a letter to the bridge. Hey, you can tell them I sent you.
I tried that. I tried an article and they didn't publish it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? I don't hear any. Correspondence? No correspondence received. And I think that probably is it, if I'm looking around. Don?
I just wanted to comment
Yes,
that
thank you.
I think that it's the practice of the differing practices of the treatment of Tier 1 capital between the schools and the town is created a very misleading situation. I've come across it in numerous places, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed, needs to be clarified, not just with a long-winded explanation, but it needs to be clarified so that the numbers are presented on an apples-to-apples basis at town meeting.
We will be, so I know Anthony and others are going to be committed to making sure we're all on the same process for next year. That'll happen after ATM. We've got to revise our financial policies because there's a little bit, there are some differences between the financial policies versus the criteria that have actually been used by the town the last couple of years. The school committee's clearly not using the same policies, so all of that will get formally unified on paper after, but I agree with you for presentation at town meeting, we've got to have apples to apples. Completely agree. We will do that. Absolutely. By whatever means we need to.
Thank you.
And then the last item, thank you, Carlin, is updated to-do list. So I've got 3 items we added. As you can see, Don's going to follow up with Carmen about the thermometer. Anthony's going to give us a list of dropped Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects. And you're also going to provide the 24 ARPA projects and whatever's tied into the capital. Did we miss anything? Just trying to take notes.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay. Can I get a motion? Thank you very much. Oh,
No, move to adjourn. Second. I can second it. All those in favor? Aye.
You don't need a vote to adjourn.
you don't?
Aye.
Chair can actually just declare it meeting adjourned. Nothing further on the agenda.
Meeting adjourned.
There you go.
Declared that.
You just like to vote.
Yeah, meeting adjourned. There you go.
Okay.